Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition, Netflix, and the number every single Dungeon Master on this planet needs to know right now. All right, let's talk about it. All right, so Netflix just made an announcement. This is absolutely astounding. I've never heard numbers like these. It's shocking. Like, it's just shocking. Okay. So Netflix has announced that its budget to create content in 2021 will be $17 billion with a B dollars. $17 billion to make content. Okay? So that means Netflix in 2021 will collectively spend $17 billion to make content. This is a very big with a B number, and it is very big with a B news. I mean, huge, right? And that's why we're talking about it. This number is so large, it will undoubtedly impact Dungeons and Dragons, and it will undoubtedly impact tabletop role playing, all non-D&D tabletop role playing games, the entire rest of the industry, which frankly it's split in half. Like, D&D is half the industry, and every other game combined is the other half. All right, so let's talk about it. All right, so I need to put this in scale for you. Okay, in the year 2019, the entire movie industry, every ticket sold, okay, in the movies. When you went to the movies, you put down your $12 to pay, your 18 if you lived in New York, whatever. The money you spent to buy your movie tickets was $11 billion. In 2019, the movie industry made $11 billion, okay? Netflix is going to outspend the all of the revenue, all the money made, right, in the entire movie industry in 2019. They will outspend that number by $6 billion. By an additional, they will, like, basically it's going to be their budget for building content in 2021 will be 50% higher than the entire revenue of the entire movie industry in 2019. That is shocking. That is just absolutely massive, okay? I got this news from Grace Randolph. She announced that Netflix would be spending $17 billion to create content in 2021. That number is massive, right? Now, that number is so large, it will undoubtedly impact Dungeons & Dragons, and it will undoubtedly impact the rest of all other tabletop role-playing games. And you're like, I don't know about that, Scott. I'm not sure that number really has anything to do with role-playing games. No, you are 100% wrong, right? It will, all right? If you think I'm wrong, I want to talk to you about some stuff. All right, Netflix, Dragon Prince, being turned into a tabletop role-playing game right now. Netflix, Avatar The Last Airbender. Yeah, it had a few friends. When they put that thing on Netflix, it was like strapping a turbo booster to a 300Z, right? Which already has a turbo booster, so it was like an extra one, right? Like Avatar: Last Airbender got catapulted by Netflix, right? Guess what's happened with that game? Tabletop role-playing game right now, right? Altered Carbon, original Netflix series, tabletop role-playing game, okay? There are distinct winners in the tabletop role-playing game industry that are coming straight out of Netflix. Netflix alone is becoming an engine for from your table to your small screen, period, right? Real shows, real stories, real narratives, right? And that was with the trifling little numbers that they were putzing around with in 2020 and 2019, right? Netflix is like, boom, we're here. Like, we dropping like a comet. That is a huge amount of numbers, right? And guess what? Since all those shows have writers, right? And since Netflix is going to be has already got these other tabletop role-playing games in the mix, there is a distinct possibility that new shows going on to onto tabletop, new shows going on to Netflix will want to have a tabletop role-playing game as part of the mix. All right. Now, I'm not going to pretend that there aren't obstacles. There are very, very big obstacles to licensed products with tabletop role-playing games, and let's get into it one more time here. Okay. So basically, I will tell you right now, Avatar: Last Airbender, Dragon Prince, right? Altered Carbon. Those games are going to do horrible business. Why? Because all tabletop role-playing games do horrible business. It is the worst business model that exists in gaming, right? It is worse than video games. It is worse than board gaming. It is worse than sports. It is the worst business model ever in gaming. It's the very, very worst, right? And so the reality is, it is not going to make, those games are not going to make a lot of money, right? Now, why are we still hopeful? Here's why, right? What tabletop role-playing games do bring to intellectual properties, which Netflix is going to own a bunch of by the end of 2021, and even if, and it's the whole, it's the old sing-song story that every poor venture capitalist hears, if I could just get 1%, right? There's probably going to be there's going to be like 500 new properties, right? If even 1% of those gets a tabletop role-playing game, that's 5 new tabletop role-playing games, right? And there are very real shows coming up. Shadow and Bone, right? Lots of shows that could get a tabletop role-playing game. Here's the other thing, right? You're going to laugh, but there's precedence, right? Firefly Lane. Whew, that was not a great show, right? But it got a lot of people watching it, right? And actually, I have to say, I really enjoyed watching it. My only issue with Firefly Lane was there was no one to root for in that whole movie. Like, every person in that movie was a villain. I'm like, what's going on here, man? Like, and if you're going to make a movie that depicts friendship, like, maybe put somebody to root for in the film, right? It was bad. But Firefly Lane, right? That's a very Jane Austen story. Like, it is just like Jane Austen to the core. Like, hey, what if you just tell a story with like no exciting parts, right? Like, everything is just things that could happen in your neighborhood, right? You could make a Firefly Lane tabletop role-playing game, right? You could make a ton of Netflix shows that no one would ever expect to be a tabletop role-playing game, and you could make them into a tabletop role-playing game. And if you think I'm crazy, I want you to go find, right now, the Dallas tabletop role-playing game, which very much exists and never had any business being a role-playing game, right? So, and here's the thing. So why would you make a role-playing game that ain't going to make any real money, right? Well, tabletop role-playing games truly are unique. They are incredibly good at putting the most already wealthy or potentially wealthy people connected to your product and highly, highly engaged with your product, right? The tabletop role-playing community is filled with geniuses, artists, and wealthy people, and some mix of all of the following, right? So Netflix's announcement that they're going to create $17 billion worth of content, you can guarantee that is going to produce, I would guess, between 5 and 50 tabletop role-playing games in the next 5 years. Without a doubt. I have no question it's going to do that. That's my opinion. What do you think? Do you think Netflix's announcement that they're going to create $17 billion worth of content, how will that impact the tabletop role-playing game industry? I'm predicting it will specifically create 5 to 50 tabletop role-playing games within 3 years. Between 2022, 2023, and 2024, there will be 5 to 50 Netflix-inspired, specifically tabletop role-playing games out of that content, and specifically out of the $17 billion that will be spent this year. That's my prediction. What's your prediction? I'd love to hear your numbers. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.